The ground swallowed her whole. One moment, Grace was walking through the thick acacia bush with her friends, laughing about the chief's son and the bride's selection ceremony. The next, she was falling into darkness. Her scream tore through the afternoon air as her body slammed against hard earth. Pain shot through her legs, dust choked her throat. When she looked up, dizzy and covered in red soil, three faces stared down at her from the edge of the pit. Sarah, Mercy, and Joy. The girls she had trusted, the girls she had called friends. "Look at you now, Grace," Sarah said, her voice dripping with venom. "The beautiful one, the one everyone praises. Let us see if the chief's son will still want you covered in mud." Their laughter echoed through the trees as they turned and walked away, leaving her trapped in the pit they had dug with their own hands. But this is not where our story begins. To understand how jealousy can make girls dig a hole just to bury another, we must go back 6 months earlier to the dry season when Grace was still just a girl fetching water from the Nzoia River. Grace lived in a small village near Busia, close to the Ugandan border. Her family was not wealthy. Her father, Peter, grew maize and millet on their small shamba. Her mother, Mary, was known throughout the village for her warm laughter and the way she could make even the hardest days feel lighter. Grace was their only child, and they loved her deeply. From the time she was young, people noticed something different about Grace. It was not just her smooth skin or her bright eyes. It was the way she moved, the way she carried herself with quiet grace. By the time she was old enough to help at the river, the village women had begun calling her Grace the Beautiful, or simply Beauty. She never asked for that name. She never wanted the attention. But in a small village, beauty is like smoke from a fire. Everyone sees it, whether you want them to or not. The trouble began slowly, like clouds gathering before the rains. One afternoon at the river, Grace was filling her clay pot when she heard giggling behind her. She turned to see 3 girls watching her: Sarah, whose mother sold vegetables at the market; Mercy, known for her sharp tongue; and Joy, who had always seemed friendly. See how she bends to fetch water, like she is performing for the whole village. Just because her face is fine, she thinks she owns the river. Grace smiled awkwardly, hoping kindness would soften their hearts, but it did not. From that day, the girls made her their daily topic. At the market, at the well, even at the church on Sundays, she could hear them whispering. Sometimes they would mimic her walk, swaying her hips and laughing. Other times, they would say things like, "Beauty is not an achievement," or "Do you think being pretty will put food on your table?" Grace would go home and cry behind the curtain of her small room. Her mother always noticed. "My daughter," Mary would say, brushing Grace's hair gently, "even sweet honey attracts jealous bees. Do not dim your light because others cannot handle the brightness." Her words brought comfort, but they did not stop the pain. As the months passed, the teasing grew worse. The girls began spreading rumors that Grace's beauty was not natural. They whispered that Mary had visited a witch doctor in the neighboring town, that she had made a deal with evil spirits to make her daughter attractive. Some villagers began to avoid their family. Children would run away when Grace approached. Mary was furious. She said to Peter one evening, "They will not destroy my child's name because of jealousy." But her husband, ever the quiet man, told her to remain calm. "People always talk, Mary. Let them talk. Words are just wind." Still, Mary stopped sending her daughter to the market. She did not want Grace to face more humiliation. So, Grace stayed home most days, helping on the shamba or cooking ugali and sukuma wiki for dinner. But staying away only made her lonelier. She would watch from their compound as the three girls walked past, laughing and singing together. She wanted that too. Friendship, belonging, someone to share secrets under the mango tree. Then came the announcement that changed everything. The village chief, Chief Daniel, was a respected elder whose son, David, had returned from Nairobi after finishing his studies. It was time for David to choose a wife. The chief beat the drum and announced that there would be a grand ceremony at his homestead. Every unmarried girl in the village was invited to dance, and David would choose his bride. The whole village burst with excitement. Women began sewing new kitenge dresses. Girls practiced their traditional dances. Mothers cooked pilau and nyama choma, preparing for the feast. Grace did not plan to go. She knew what waited for her there: mockery, whispers, shame. But Mary would not hear of it. "My daughter, you will go," she said firmly. "Do not let fear cage your destiny. Who knows, God may smile on you that day." Reluctantly, Grace began to prepare. Her mother gave her a beautiful green and gold kitenge dress and a beaded necklace that had belonged to her grandmother. "You look like a queen," she said, her eyes shining with pride. But while Grace was dreaming of the ceremony, others were plotting her downfall. The three girls met at Mercy's compound the next morning, sitting under the shade of a banana tree. "Do you think Duty will come to the ceremony?" Joy asked, her voice bitter. "She better not. If she shows up, David will not even look at the rest of us. He will choose her immediately." "Then we make sure she does not come," Mercy said, her eyes glinting with malice. Their plan was simple but cruel. They would pretend to befriend Grace, gain her trust, and then destroy her chances of attending the ceremony. A few days later, they arrived at Grace's compound carrying roasted groundnuts and mangoes as a peace offering. They smiled sweetly and apologized for how they had treated her. "We were foolish and jealous," Sarah said, "but we have grown now. We want to be your friends." Her gut leapt with joy. Finally, friendship. Finally, belonging. Someone to share secrets under the mango tree. But Mary did not believe it for 1 second. She pulled her daughter aside that evening. "Grace," she warned, "be careful. Snakes do not change their nature. They only shed their skin." But Grace's heart was tired of loneliness. She wanted to believe people could change. The girls began visiting almost every day. They would braid Grace's hair, share stories, and compliment her dancing. She began to trust them again, even though something in her mother's eyes said she should not. Behind her back, they were digging. They took pangas and djembes into the thick bush near the path to the chief's homestead. For 3 days, they dug in secret, sweating under the hot sun, their hatred fueling every strike of the hoe. They dug until the pit was deep enough to trap a person, wide enough to cause serious injury. "This will teach her," Mercy said, wiping sweat from her forehead. "Let us see if Beauty will still want you covered in mud." Their laughter echoed through the trees as they turned and walked away, leaving her trapped in the pit they had dug with their own hands. But this is not how our story begins. The morning of the ceremony arrived bright and clear. Mary woke Grace early and hugged her tightly. She promised her one thing, she said, her voice trembling. "Promise me, do not follow those girls anywhere. Go straight to the chief's homestead. I had a bad dream last night." Grace promised, but she did not understand why her mother seemed so afraid. A few hours later, the 3 girls appeared at her gate, dressed in colorful kitenges, flowers in her hair. "Grace," she called, "we came to walk with you. Let us take a shortcut through the bush. We do not want anyone seeing our dresses before we reach the ceremony." Grace hesitated. Her mother's warning echoed in her mind. "Ah, don't tell me you are still listening to your mother's superstitions," Mercy said, rolling her eyes. "We are all friends now, are we not?" Against her best judgment, Grace agreed. They walked together through the village, laughing and talking about David and the ceremony. For the first time in months, Grace felt genuinely happy. But as they entered the thick bush, the laughter died down. The path grew narrow and dark. Birds stopped singing. Grace's chest tightened with unease.
"This way, Grace," Sarah said, pointing to a small trail. "The path is smoother here." And that is when it happened. The ground gave way beneath her feet. Grace screamed as she fell into the deep pit, her body crashing against the hard earth below. Pain exploded through her legs. When she looked up, dazed and covered in red soil, the three girls stood at the edge, staring down with cruel smiles. "Look at you now, Beauty," Sarah mocked. "The village beauty, the queen to be. You want to dance, right? Dance there." They burst into laughter, their voices echoing through the trees. "Please help me," Grace begged, her voice shaking. "Why are you doing this?" But they just watched her with cold eyes. "You think you are better than us?" Mercy sneered. "Let us see if David will still want you now." And with that, they turned their backs and walked away, leaving her trapped in the darkness. Grace screamed until her voice cracked, clawing at the walls of the pit, but it was too deep. The sky slowly dimmed as the sun began to set. She was alone, broken, shivering, surrounded by darkness. And that was when it hit her. She was trapped, and no one was coming to save her. At the chief's compound, Mary anxiously waited for her daughter to arrive. The ceremony had begun. Girls danced to the beat of drums, their colorful kitenges swirling in the afternoon sun. But Grace was nowhere to be seen. Mary approached the three girls who were dancing with the others. "Have you seen Grace?" she asked, her voice tight with worry. "Grace," Sarah said, looking confused. "We have not seen her. Maybe she decided not to come." But Mary knew her daughter. Grace had been excited about this ceremony. She would not simply choose to stay away. She found Peter standing with the other elders and told him Grace had not arrived. Together, they rushed home, hoping to find her there. The compound was empty. Grace's beautiful kitenge dress was gone. She had left. Fear gripped Mary's heart. She knew something was very wrong. Meanwhile, at the ceremony, David watched the maidens dance. They were all beautiful in their own ways, but something was missing. His heart felt no connection to any of them. He turned to his father and said quietly, "Father, I have not found my bride." The chief stopped the music and announced to the gathered crowd, "My son has spoken. He has not found his wife among you." The crowd murmured in shock. The girls stood frozen, some with tears in their eyes. Sarah, Mercy, and Joy trembled with rage and disappointment. All their plotting, all their cruelty, and still, David had chosen no one. Grace's parents rushed back to the chief's compound, their hearts pounding with fear. Mary fell to her knees before Chief Daniel. "My daughter is missing," she cried. "She left home this morning to come here, but she never arrived." The chief's face grew stern with concern. Who was she with? Who saw her last? Mary remembered. "Those three girls," she pointed at Sarah, Mercy, and Joy. "They came to our home this morning. They said they would walk with her to the ceremony." The chief summoned the three girls immediately. They stood before him, trying to look innocent. "Do you know where Grace is?" he demanded. "No, Chief," they said in unison. "We do not know. We came straight here." But Chief Daniel was a wise man who had settled many disputes in his years. He saw the fear in their eyes, the way they would not look at Mary directly. "Search the village," he commanded his men. "Search everywhere. Find this girl." The guards spread out throughout the village and into the surrounding bush, calling Grace's name. But as the sun began to set, they returned empty-handed. Mary wailed in grief, tears streaming down her face as she held her husband close. The chief promised to send more guards out at first light, but Mary could not sleep that night. She lay awake praying for her daughter's safe return. The next morning, as the sun rose over the village, a hunter named James prepared for his daily hunt. James was a skilled hunter who provided meat for the chief's compound regularly. He took his bow and arrows and ventured into the thick bush. As he walked through the acacia trees, he heard something that made him stop. A faint voice, hoarse and weak, calling for help. "Please, someone, help me. Is anyone there? Please." James was puzzled. Who could be in the deep forest at this hour? He followed the voice carefully, pushing through the thick undergrowth until he came upon a deep pit hidden among the bushes. He looked down and gasped. A girl lay at the bottom, weak and trembling, covered in red soil. "Hold on," he called down. "I will get you out." He quickly fashioned a rope from strong vines and lowered it into the pit. The girl, whom he recognized as Grace from the village, grabbed the rope with shaking hands. James pulled with all his strength until finally he lifted her out of the pit. Grace collapsed on the ground, exhausted from a night of screaming for help. James gave her water from his gourd and she drank gratefully. "What happened to you?" he asked gently. Through tears, Grace told him everything: the false friendship, the trap, the girls who had betrayed her. James's face hardened with anger. He knew he should take her straight home to her parents, but then he had another thought. The chief needed to hear this. Justice needed to be served. "Come," he said, helping Grace to her feet. "We are going to the chief's compound." When they arrived at the chief's compound, James requested an immediate audience. The chief, who had been preparing to send out another search party, came quickly. "Chief Daniel," James said, "I found her. I found Grace in a pit in the bush." Mary and Peter, who had spent the night at the compound, rushed forward. Mary embraced her daughter, sobbing with relief. Peter's eyes filled with tears as he held them both. "Tell me what happened," Chief Daniel commanded, his voice grave. Grace, still weak but determined, told her story. She described how the three girls had befriended her, gained her trust, and then led her into the bush. How they had pushed her into a pit they had dug themselves. How they had mocked her and left her to die. The chief's face grew darker with every word. The gathered crowd gasped in horror. Even the elders shook their heads in disbelief. "Bring those three girls to me now," he thundered. Sarah, Mercy, and Joy were brought before him. They stood trembling, their eyes on the ground. "Look at me," he commanded. "Look me in the eye and tell me the truth. Did you do this to Grace?" The girls remained silent, but their silence spoke louder than words. "We know you did it," Chief Daniel said, his voice like iron. "Speak the truth now and perhaps there is mercy. Lie and face the full weight of justice." Joy, seeing the chief's fury and the accusing eyes of the entire village, began to cry. "We are sorry. We were jealous. Our mothers always compared us to her. They said we should be more like Grace. We just wanted to teach her a lesson. We did not mean to." "You did not mean to what? You did not mean to leave her to die in a pit. You did not mean to destroy her. You did not mean to break her parents' hearts." The three girls fell to their knees, begging for forgiveness. But the damage was done. Chief Daniel turned to his guards. "Take them away. They will be imprisoned for 6 months, and when they are released, they are banished from this village. No one is to speak to them, trade with them, or help them in any way. Anyone who associates with them will face the same punishment." The crowd watched in silence as the guards led the weeping girls away. Some villagers nodded in approval, others looked sad, but knew justice had to be served. After the girls were taken away, Chief Daniel turned to address the crowd once more. But before he could speak, his son David stepped forward. "Father," he said, his voice clear and strong, "I have something to say." He walked through the crowd until he stood before Grace. She was still covered in dust, her beautiful dress torn and stained with red soil. But David saw beyond all that. "Yesterday, I could not choose a bride. My heart felt no connection to anyone. But now I understand why. The woman I was meant to find was not at the ceremony. She was trapped in darkness, fighting to survive." He turned to Grace and took her hands gently. "Grace, you are not just beautiful on the outside. Your mother raised you with kindness even when others were cruel to you. You chose to believe in friendship even when you had been hurt. You have a strength and grace that goes beyond what the eye can see." He looked into her eyes and smiled. "Will you be my wife?" The crowd erupted in cheers and ululations. Mary wept tears of joy. Peter embraced his wife, laughing for the first time in 2 days. Grace, overwhelmed and exhausted, could barely believe what was happening. "Yes," she whispered, and then louder, "Yes." David lifted her to her feet and embraced her. The drums began to beat again, and the village erupted in celebration.
James, the hunter who had saved Grace, was called forward. Chief Daniel rewarded him with 10 goats and a piece of land for his kindness and quick action. "You saved not just a life," the chief said, "but our family's joy. You will always be honored in this village." And so, Grace, the girl who had been thrown into a pit by jealousy, became the chief's daughter-in-law. Our wedding was the grandest the village had ever seen. People came from neighboring villages to celebrate with dancing, feasting, and joy. As for Sarah, Mercy, and Joy, they served their time and were released. But they found the world outside prison even harsher. No one would speak to them. No market woman would sell to them. They had to leave the village and start new lives far away, carrying the shame of what they had done. Years later, when Grace had children of her own, she would tell them this story. She would tell them that jealousy is a poison that destroys the one who carries it. That true beauty is not just what you see in the mirror, but how you treat others when you have every reason to be cruel. And she would always end the story with her mother's words. "Even sweet honey attracts jealous bees, but do not dim your light because others cannot handle the brightness. Let your light shine and trust that those meant to appreciate it will find you."